disclosure. This is not a CAR required form. This is, however, a Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance required form. When I started in this business, there were 3 little lines on the TDS where the agent could write anything they noted. And that is just not enough area to point out things that may or may not be wrong with the property. So they came up with this new form. There are things that are exempt from being inspected. And it says right here, California law does not require the agent to inspect the areas that are not reasonably and normally accessible. You don't have to crawl under the house. You don't have to go into the attic. Areas offside of the property, you don't need to go look at everything in the condo complex, the gym, the pool, the jacuzzi, and make notes about those things. Public records or permits, you do not need to look at those. That is actually part of buyer discovery. So you don't need to make comments on that on an AVID. And again, common areas, planned developments, condominiums, stock operatives, and the likes. You don't have to do the common areas. Roof and attic, agent will not climb onto a roof or into an attic. Agent will not move or look under, behind furniture, pictures, wall hangings, or floor coverings. Agent will not look up chimneys or into cabinets or open locked doors. Exterior, agent will not inspect beneath the house, climb up or down a hillside, move or look behind plants, bushes, shrubbery, and other vegetation or fences, walls, or other barriers. Okay. Appliances, agent will not operate the appliances or systems, meaning you don't have to turn on the stove. You don't have to turn on the hot water. You don't have to get a drink of water from the refrigerator or see if it produces ice. This is such as, but not limited to, electrical, plumbing, pool, spa, heating, cooling, septic, sprinkler, communication, entertainment, well, or water. Size of the property or improvements. Agents will not measure square footage of lot or improvements, or identify or locate boundary lines, easements, or encroachments. This is
just to go back real quick on one thing Nikki just said, and like Terry was, making a comment on the chat, which was funny. It was, she said, keyword is visual, right? A lot of times these get done at the same time, and maybe we'll touch on this later, Nikki, I'm not sure. A lot of times these get done during the inspection day. And a lot of times you guys will hear like the inspector say, okay, you guys got a bad electrical panel. It's not up to you to take the bad electrical panel information and restate it in your AVID, right? Because visually you wouldn't have picked up on that, right? And if the inspector picked up on the fact that the panel is bad, then it's going to be in his report. You guys don't need to take on that liability of like, oh, well, this is a new discovery right now while I'm doing my AVID. No, because you also might articulate what's wrong with the panel incorrectly, because you're not an electrician. Now, if you have a past life and you were an electrician, maybe that's a different story. But realistically, we don't want you putting specific information on here just because the inspector called it out. It's a visual inspection disclosure, because sometimes agents are like, well, the inspector told me this. And I'm like, okay, but that's their job. That's not your job. Okay, so continue, Nikki. Sorry, I just wanted to...
So Nick.
Yeah.
So likewise, I was there when the termite inspector was there, and he pointed out the areas of termite damage, which I wouldn't have opened up this door to see it. So I don't need to call that out, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be on
their report, right?
Okay.
Like you don't want to, like, here's the, like, you don't want to obviously omit anything and not tell the buyer, but if an inspector called it out and it's going to be on their report, obviously it's going to be disclosed. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, I don't want you guys taking on that responsibility and that liability. And we're going to get into more of what that means, but Nikki, go ahead and continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, you were on size of property and improvements.
Environmental hazard. It will not determine if property has mold, asbestos, lead or lead-based paint, radon, formaldehyde, or any other hazardous substances, or analyze soil or geological condition. Agent is not obligated to pull permits or inspect public records. Agents will not guarantee views or zoning, identified proposed construction or development, or changes or proximity to transportation, schools, or law enforcement. For any items disclosed as a result of agent's visual inspection or by others, agent will not provide an analysis of or determine the cause or source of the disclosed matter or determine the cost of any possible repair. That's what goes back to what Nick was saying about making comments that inspectors make. Here's the thing. I know a lot of people do their AVIDs while they're at the home inspections. And hopefully I'm only talking to buyer's agents, not listing agents. If you're going to do that, it's a great time because you're going to be there for a while, but I highly recommend that you do not follow the inspector. Go and do it by yourself. Do what you are looking at, what you are noticing, and you don't hear what the inspector is commenting on. Because even if you think that you're not doing it, you might end up bringing up something like, oh, well, the dishwasher doesn't fit into the place in the kitchen. Well, you didn't really know that. You only knew that because you heard that the inspector said that. So really just, if you're gonna do it at that time, go off on your own and make your notes. I love this form and I hate this form in some ways. As a TC, it is one of the biggest forms that you have to chase in a transaction. I literally closed a deal last week. Wasn't my agent that did it, but the other agent gave us their AVID the day we closed escrow. And they were the listing agent. If you are the listing agent, this form is due in 7 days, just like all the other disclosures. I would say 30% of my agents give me the AVID with all of the other disclosures. The rest of them do them after. You guys, you go to that property so many times. Just make an AVID. If something changes after the AVID was done, it changed after it was done. At the top of page 2, you tell the date and time that you inspected it. You tell the weather conditions and you tell where other people are present. If something changes, then it changes. You did your inspection on this day and this is what you observed at that time. Okay. In regards to, so Terry, the listing agent, this should be done before the 7 days are up, before all your disclosures are due. The key word with an AVID is visual, but I need to stress you have other senses. And if you note something with your other senses, you need to write it down. Okay. I was in property the other day and I was walking around and I heard the train whistle. And I need to note that. I absolutely need to put on my AVID that I heard an audible whistle. 2 separate times that I was on that property, I heard it. Okay. That is some information that sometimes sellers things become white noise to them. They don't notice it anymore and they don't disclose it. But if you as the agent have disclosed it, nobody can ever come back and say, well, we never knew about this.
Nikki, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Mhm.
With that, because I know there's some of us that are like super new. What is a good verbiage to when you're talking to your seller? Because think of it, you know, they're probably going to be thinking, well, I don't want you to write all this stuff. So is it maybe, what's the verbiage to kind of, you know, when you're talking to your seller about like why you have to write all this stuff? I usually just tell them it's for their protection as well, but can you just speak to that for a second?
I
You know what
just
I mean?
usually that it is my duty as an agent to disclose anything I notice at the property that may affect somebody's, well, first of all, let me press, I always say when I talk to my sellers, buyers want the property. If you disclose something to a buyer, they'll decide whether or not they want to move forward. If you don't disclose something and they are surprised about it after it closes escrow, they are angry and they sue. Surprised buyers get angry and sue. So what we want to do is we want to be absolutely forthcoming and tell anything that's, properties have issues. Even brand new properties have issues. All properties have issues. We just need to be open and upfront about them.
Can I add something to that, Nikki?
Of course.
So also remember, guys, that agency law states that you owe an honest and fair dealing to all parties too. So you're your client's fiduciary, but you owe an honest and ethical, fair dealing to everybody involved. So if you're talking to a seller, like, why are you putting this there? It's because, like, listen, I can't omit anything by the laws of agency that are in this deal. I am your, I'm your fiduciary, but I still have to be honest to everybody in the transaction. And so if there are defects or issues with this property, it is my duty, my right as an agent to disclose these things. Because again, we'd rather everybody find out about these issues. My other comments I would make is we also want everybody to find out about these issues now. So that, again, like Nikki said, they don't come back later. Like, hey, why wasn't this called attention to? Or why was this not a thing? Or, how come the agent didn't pick up on it if buyer and seller didn't pick up on it or disclose it? So it is a release of liability in a sense for us. But again, it's also just about owing everybody a fair deal on and being honest in the transaction.
Yeah. Make sure you do fill out this part up here if somebody else is with you. Weather conditions, because that may, if you do your inspection when it's gloomy, you may not see everything. So just disclose that it was gloomy. Other people present, yes, fill that out. AVIDs need to be signed in both the middle and the bottom page. The person that signs the bottom of the page is the one that's actually representing the seller or the buyer. New news that I found out is technically someone else from your brokerage could fill out your AVID. And it's not you, the listing agent or the selling agent. And what you would do is up in this rectangle right here, it would say the brokerage name and the person who filled it out. Then the actual agent would sign down here. I don't recommend somebody else doing your AVID for you at all. This is not too much to be asking of an agent to walk around and comment on anything they note. The other one, it's your eyes and your ears. It's also your nose. I had a big deal that was going to go into mediation and then possibly a lawsuit because the animals had peed in the same spot in a house over and over and over again. And what ended up having to happen after it closed escrow was they had to pull up the floor all the way to the subflooring and then have it specially cleaned because it had just been in the same place for so long. But in that instance, both agents noted on their AVID that they detected a strong odor So in both instances, those agents said that. So both agents were covered because they did note it, and the buyer couldn't come back and say that they did not know about that. So that is one instance where, yes, stank is a, we don't want to use the word stank, but noticeable odor is a good way of putting it. I'm not saying good, bad, or whatever. You're just noting that that you smell something when you're in the house. Okay.
Can I ask a question, Nikki?
Of course.
Okay, my question is, okay. So if you're the selling agent, obviously you fill one out, but a buyer's agent has to fill it out also?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yes, because it is your duty to your clients to go in and make note of anything as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was trying to grab a few. I need to like keep a folder going of files. That's not the one I wanted. I want my AVID's file.
Keep in mind, guys, too, like Nikki, when I do transactions with Nikki, she always hooks me up with like a glide so I can just fill out the AVID like page to page to page and like go room by room on the clickable stuff. And I always keep like a notebook with me. Like I keep like a pad of paper. And so while I'm walking through the house, I'm doing my AVID, but it's not like on an AVID form. Now, if you can bring an AVID with you before you go to the inspection, that's the like easiest way because you're there and you can just hand write in what's wrong with the property per the form that she just showed you. But let's just say you forget to bring an AVID or print one out. That's fine because you can just write everything down on a notepad, room by room by room. And then when you come back, you know, you can have Nikki hook you up with a glide, right? And you can just go click, 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 and just type out what you wrote in your notebook. Like that's what I do a lot of times because I always forget to print out the AVID. So don't feel like you have to have this form on you. You can fill it out through glide later. Anyways, Nikki, carry on. I just wanted to share that because I don't want people like panicking, like you have to have this printed out before you could do it later.
And then Nick and Nikki, and then isn't this also with the glide? We can take photos of things that we see and just upload that, and you guys recommend that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, right now I have a couple of examples that I wanted to show, but since Nick started talking about the glide, this is an AVID filled out on glide. I tried to white out names and addresses to protect the innocent, or not so. In this case, it's the innocent. So the AVID you can do on your phone while you are at the property, and you can do all the typing in and you can take the photos, or you can just take the photos of everything you note and you can come back to your office and type it all in. So if you look at, let's see, make this bigger.
Is that by downloading the app for Glide to your phone?
Mm-hmm. And actually, if you just log into Glide on your phone, you can do it.
Ah, cool.
So this one in the entryway, it says gap on top corner when front door is closed. See attached, JPEG. Living room, see text plus overflow addendum. Round missing paint spots on back kitchen wall. I think that's supposed to be scuff marks on wall. Chip paint on corner wall. And all these places that say JPEG, there's actually pictures. So we're gonna go past this. And this is the first text overflow addendum that Glide automatically puts the information onto for you. Living room, paint on wood frame above slider door, bubble and crack and paint on wall parallel to front door. So anything that doesn't fit in that small area, it puts on the text overflow. In this case, the person noted a lot. And then here are all the JPEGs that the pictures that go with those comments. And here's the thing. Some of this might be a little teeny tiny, but you can't argue really with a photo. And sometimes it's a little hard to explain. I had this same thing where on the bar in the kitchen, there was just this noticeable seam in the wall, and I didn't really know how to explain it, but I could easily take a picture of it, and it conveys things a lot better than sometimes we can actually verbalize them. So this is how it looks when you do an AVID on Glide. There's not much argument here. I really, really highly recommend using the Glide. And you don't have to do it on your phone while you're there. You can just take the pictures and then come back and input them later. So that was a pretty good AVID. Right
It's a
there.
good looking condo.
The names were changed. This is a don't do. Okay. Ooh, I'm just going to skip over that property address.
My handwriting. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Entry. Ground level with steps. Living room, fresh paint, hard wood. Dining room, hard wood. Tile, Formica, electric oven. Hardwood, lead, something, fresh paint, hardwood closet. Double closet with something. Okay, my first thing is, if you don't have legible writing, don't write your AVID, type it, okay? What I did before Glide came around was I would take an AVID and I'd write all my notes on the AVID, and then I'd go back and type it in zip forms.
That's good.
But this is not very clear. And as you can see, even when I make it bigger, it's still not that clear. One of the things you want to kind of keep in mind, I know it's a horrible thought, but how is your AVID going to look when they blow it up in a courtroom? This is more like a marketing piece than an AVID. Tub shower combo. Pretty sure that everybody that looked at the inspection, everybody that looked at the pictures, everybody that's been in the property could do this same thing.
By the way, guys, there's a couple of things like I want to note too. Like I know some agents like to write the word hardwood. A lot of flooring is very deceiving. I don't recommend describing countertops. I don't recommend describing flooring, because what if you're wrong? Like, what if you told your client it's hardwoods and then they find out that it's like engineered flooring, or it's a really good looking vinyl? Like, I'm not saying that, you guys would make that mistake, but that could be a huge thing. Nikki, I'm curious what you think on this. Fresh paint. I've written fresh paint on AVIDs before. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to know, like, there's obviously fresh paint in here in case like maybe something shows up later, a stain reemerges in the future. Like, they just painted this thing, so it's off my shoulders. So sometimes I do recommend writing that in, but I don't describe surfaces necessarily.
Actually, fresh is a pretty good, or newly. And that wasn't my point about this. My point was basically that all they did was go into the home and describe what they saw.
That's it. Yeah.
It's not a description of everything you see. It's a description of the things that, if I was your best friend and you took me to look at this house and I noticed some things, I want to be that best friend that points out things that maybe you didn't notice, but I want to make sure that you see. Maybe not so best friend, maybe the super honest best friend. I don't know. But you don't need me to tell you there's a step in the shower. Now, if there was a crack in the step in the shower, you need me to tell you that. If there was a loose tile in the shower that you could tell was loose, you need me to do that. Okay, so this is kind of an example of what we don't really want you to do. And you will notice after taking this class that so many agents fill out their AVIDs exactly this way.
The other thing to keep in mind too, like if you walk into a house, let's say that's like a flip and there is a bedroom where the walls have been recently painted, the baseboards look good, the floors look good, like everything looks good in that room, it's okay to write nothing to note. You know, like there are times that you're going to walk into rooms where there honestly is nothing to note. Oh, look, she pulls this up. How funny. Okay. Well, I'm curious what Nikki's thoughts are on that, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'm bringing this up because I have absolutely been into those homes. I've been in really, really, really nice, really, really expensive homes that have people that clean and take care of everything, and you can't find anything. And you're not following the inspector and you're not writing down what he's saying. But, you know, this person, basically there was nothing to note in the house except for a nail in the wall and small chips in the paint. And sometimes there's not even that. As long as you write nothing to note and there's nothing to note, it shows that you went into that room and you don't have anything to say about it. There's nothing negative or noticeable.
And Nikki and I are also speaking from, like, we've both taken Robert Brand's class so many times. For those of you that don't know, like, Robert Brand is like a great, like, liability, legal mind guy, whatever. I don't even know what Robert necessarily does. Nikki, you probably do, but he teaches classes on disclosure a lot. He's been doing it for years. And he's also somebody who advocates for saying, you know, just write nothing to note. If there really is nothing, just write nothing to note. Like Nikki said, it's like the fact that you've been in that room, that's what you're trying to showcase. So go ahead.
Okay. The one thing that is not here, and this is not a CBCA agent, but what we want you to put, and this is another thing Robert Brand says, in this other observed or known conditions not specified above, we want you to write the items noted above are what I have observed. I do not know what they mean, and I urge the buyer to further investigate. Okay, so
Where do you want us to write that?
Nikki, did you hear that?
What?
Kathy was saying, where do you want them to write that?
Right
And-
here, other observed or known conditions.
Can you
Okay,
say
and
it again, Nikki?
yeah.
You said
Can we put it in
items
the
noted
chat?
above or what I observed and
Hold on. You guys are talking faster than I could type.
You got
thank
it.
you,
So I-
Nikki.
Got
She put it
Oh,
in chat, guys.
not investigation, obviously.
Where did she put it?
In chat.
In the items listed above are what I have observed. I do not know what they mean. I urge buyer to further investigate.
I do not know what they mean. Sounds like that could be controversial, but
I know.
I'm
I'm
gonna,
not,
I'm gonna go with
It is what Robert Brand says.
Yeah.
And the reason I put that is if I go back to the case that I was talking about earlier where there was the seam in the wall. I don't know what the seam means, but I just want to make sure that you know that there's a visible seam.
is there another way to word it? It makes it sound like we're incompetent.
This is directly from Robert Brand.
Okay. Okay.
It's just disclosure, guys.
Okay.
It's just disclosure. You're not incompetent if you don't have a contractor's license.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you can word it differently. I do not know what the underlining meaning is.
Okay.
Just so you guys know too, if you do after this class, if you want to hit me up separately, I did do like a private recording of Robert Brand's training for us one time. He doesn't want me to disperse it like to everyone, but if you ask me for it, I can give you a private link to the training. You will not find it on our YouTube, even though it is on our YouTube. So if you want that, hit me up separately. I'll send it to you individually.
Yeah, he's got a lot more really good examples than I have. I didn't have enough time to search them.
No, this is great, Nikki. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in case you guys want to hear what Nikki's saying, like from his mouth too, like you can watch that training and he'll tell you the same thing.
Okay.
Nikki,
So this-
Nikki, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What about the garage? Like for my client that I have right now, the garage is like, there's so much in it, you can't see anything. Can you say, what would you say for something like that?
Yes, you say agent was not able to observe the entire garage due to furniture or boxes or
Just overcrowding.
I've actually had quite a few sales where there were hoarders and the agent literally had to say agent was unable to observe anything in the room due to contents piled up to the windows.
It kind of says it right there under bedroom 2. The room is exceptionally full
Yes.
of the tenant's belongings.
So this is another one. This is actually for not using Glide. One of an example of what I thought was a good, and there you go. There's a strong odor that hits you as soon as you enter the home. Fire to investigate source of the smell. Where you said bedroom 2, room is exceptionally full of tenants' belongings. I cannot access the closet. Paint is damaged throughout. Fixtures are corroded. This is the former garage. Buyer to verify permits. Okay, I don't know if this was your client, if you'd really want to put houses in terrible disrepair. But yeah, this is one that somebody did for a home that was basically a hoarder home. Let me see, Don, I'm reading it. Yes. Dawn, I don't know if everyone's looking at the chat, but she said, if you point out other items and then make the suggestion of further investigation, you are covered. I.e. agent noticed a hole in bathroom wall with an odor emanating, and I suggest further investigation. So those are a couple examples of AVIDs that I have received that I was just able to find in like the last 15 minutes. I can show you, if I had more time, even more. I have received from agents completely blank AVIDs. And I sent it back and I said, oh, were you going, did you send me this by mistake? Is there another one that's filled out? No, that's the AVID. Okay. We don't want blank AVIDs. Kobe, it was great that you brought up garages. Sometimes even if the house is perfect, a lot of times garages have cracks in the flooring because they're big concrete slabs, and you know, the the ground does shift in California. So garages are a good place to check for cracks. Sidewalks, concrete patios, those are good places to note. Driveways, you may not find it in the home, but sometimes you can find it on the outside the home.
And keep in mind, guys, you know, you're not doing this AVID because a couple of you asked about, like, I think Christy asked about, like, what's the seller think earlier. You know, you're not doing this as a deal killer. remember, like, this is strictly to provide disclosure. And trust me, if you're picking up on it, there's going to be a lot more written about it on an inspection report. So just remember, like, this is a lot of times just reiterating a lot of cosmetic deficiencies of the property more than anything else.
Yeah, there's with the nothing noted thing, I did have a case where the agent, you couldn't really find anything. And then they went around and was like, there is a scuff on the second stair. There is a chip on the paint, on the screw and the door. And the seller was really upset and was like, what kind of bullshit is this? Pardon my French. So, don't like microscopically go around with a spyglass to find things. If you can't really notice anything that jumps out at you right away, nothing noted. And yeah, that's about all I gotta say, except do these AVIDs as quick as you can. Sign in both spots. Date it.
And Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, but these do trigger a 5-day disclosure period, correct?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of why Nikki's making a big deal too, guys, about getting this done in the beginning, like, especially if you're a listing agent, like, do them in the very, very, very beginning. Like, even if you can do them at the end of like a listing appointment when you've got everything signed, like, walk around real quick, do your AVID. There's really not a bad time to do it other than too late, because here's the deal. If you had a really contentious transaction between a buyer and seller, and your buyer is savvy and they want out of the deal, even though they've removed all contingencies, okay, and then somebody provides an AVID at the 11th hour, that triggers a right of disclosure per item 10 in the contract. So please understand that this form is important to get done early on during the investigational process, like everything else. Just like they have to look at the title report, look at all the TDS, SPQ, all that crazy stuff. This should go along with that period of the transaction. Do not wait till the last minute to do it.
So Nick, meaning in this one property that I just looked at yesterday, there's 2 areas in the ceiling where you can see the textures a little different. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say the texture looks different. So possibly there was a leak in the ceiling, or, in the bathroom and upstairs. And we didn't see it, I don't think, on any disclosure. So when you say that triggers a disclosure, if I point that out, just texture different in the ceiling, they then are obligated to disclose if there was a leak? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, disclosure from the seller and disclosure on your AVID are honestly 2 different things, right?
Okay.
The seller's supposed to provide what they're aware of the property. The inspector's supposed to inspect the property, and you're supposed to do your AVID. They're all 3 totally different things. Yeah, so you could just put a irregular patchwork or a regular, a regular surface material in ceiling and bathroom, however you want to describe it. Don't get too descriptive. But the one thing you just said to me that I want to make sure, this is something else, maybe Nikki already said it, don't speculate.
Right.
Don't assume. You don't know there was a leak.
Right.
You don't know that there was anything going on, right? So don't, like, I've seen agents do that where they're like, oh, well, this must have been from such and such. No, you don't know that. And also, if there was a leak, maybe it was corrected 15 years ago and they just never managed to fix the freaking cosmetic, whatever. Don't go there. So that's what I want to make very clear about. Like, just take it at face value. Regular, what do you call this stuff? Like regular drywall? Yeah, like whatever. I don't know.
Nick, I have a question just about on that same note.
Yeah.
So what if you're the buyer's agent, and you notice something not major, but something major enough to where they see it. And when you get the TDS and all the different disclosures and there's nothing on there, would that just be the time that you just call the agent probably and say, hey, there's obviously something going on with this ceiling over here and your seller hasn't noted anything about it? Is that what the next step? Obviously being like, we need to address this because my buyers are concerned, let's just say.
I'm just going to jump in right here. I was just going to say, the one thing that I have noted that good AVIDs can do is open up conversations where you point out something and then your buyer's like, oh, And then that conversation is opened in a way where you don't come out saying, oh, your seller didn't disclose something, but hey, we noticed that there's some different texture on the walls in the living room. Did something happen? Or it's just a question. It's not a why didn't you disclose it? It's just a, oh, we observed this. Can you explain what happened? I mean, it could be as simple as I remodeled my home, and the orange peel that they used to texture my wall, they just did not put as thickly in one spot as they did in the other. But you can open the conversation without there being the why didn't you disclose this or anything. And it's a dialogue.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Christy, you were on the right track with that. I would call, like Nikki's saying, I would call and investigate further with the agent to try to see if the seller wants to showcase something. But a lot of times we do, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times the buyers and even ourselves, we assume the worst, and a lot of times there isn't necessarily anything crazy happening. You know what I mean? So I don't want you to jump there mentally, but I do agree with Nikki. I think it can beg a conversation.
I kind of think of the AVID as just, if you're a listing agent, it's kind of the backup thing, because sometimes sellers, we all love our homes and we all think our homes are perfect. And sometimes there's something on a wall that is there and it's nothing, and you don't even think about saying anything about it. But just that bringing it up covers everybody and maybe opens that discussion.
Yeah, one time, I don't even know how you would feel about this, Nikki, but one time I had a client who got mad at me because I disclosed that there was a dog next door, because the dog was loud and crazy. And a couple of times that the buyer visited the property, when we finally opened up escrow, for whatever reason, the dog was like not there. So I just thought, okay, I don't want to be the one to get a phone call after we close if there's this like raging crazy ass dog next door. So I wrote into my AVID something like barking dog next door, something like that. Like that's all I wrote on my AVID. And my client got so mad. She goes, why would you write that on there? And I go, Christina, like that dog is crazy, and that dog is crazy. And I'm not gonna get a nasty phone call because you don't want to disclose it. Because even on, like, I think it's the SPQ or TDS, it says, are there any noise issues in your neighborhood? And she puts nothing. And I was like, okay, lady, you can play that game, but I'm not playing that game. So I put it on there, and never heard from the buyer again. That didn't do anything, but at least it was out there. So
I mean, I know everybody that's ever been to Eximino for quite a few periods. The wild parrots, those things are loud.
God, I hate those parrots. I hate them.
And I've been to homes before where the parrots all nest every day. They come to trees to eat, and it is unbelievably loud.
They never stop talking.
You would what?
They never stop talking. It drives me nuts. Even in Santa Ana, anywhere, honestly, from Pasadena to Santa Ana, they're everywhere. And it's just like, who made that mistake? How did we get an obnoxious green parrot native to Southern California? I just don't even understand how that happened. But yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. Would you disclose those though, Nikki? Because they're everywhere.
Okay, so there is a particular street in Long Beach that I know that they come and they eat all the trees that are planted up and down. And I was there one day, and it was literally about 100 of them.
Oh no. Okay.
So
my street, Nikki.
I mean, it was crazy. And then they throw these little things that they're eating down on the ground. So yes, if I was going to do an AVID for a house on that street, I would absolutely note it when I was there.
I think, and I think that's the thing too. Is it a consistent issue? I think is the other thing, right? Like the dog next door was a constant issue, so I noted it. The parrots maybe on that street particularly are a constant issue. Just like if you're in a flight path for the airport, constant issue, right? So like certain things make sense. Terry was making a joke, I think, about a Canadian goose flight pattern. No, I mean, let's be honest, if it's like a once a year migrational thing that only, I mean, I wouldn't really call attention to that, because how the hell are we going to know if the geese don't change course? You know, we can't really communicate with them. So anywho, I don't know. It's up to you. Here's what I always say with disclosure: use your best judgment. If you feel, this is my on it, and this is sometimes maybe bad to say to realtors because I know some crooked realtors out there, but if you feel this could end up in a courtroom, that's kind of what I go to. Like Nikki said, how would your AVID look in a courtroom? Could this go to court and be a huge issue? That's what you should ask yourself. And if you can answer yes, then you should probably call attention to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a family member who moved into this gorgeous house, and right after they moved in, they found out there were 6 dachshunds living in the home next door. They were loud. Really loud. Not a good thing for nobody to have noted in that case.
Yeah, that's not fun.
You, I just have a little question. So then you could just write, let's say like in one of the bedrooms or something, you can just write like, you would actually say like chip paint on wall or like, or scuff mark. You would just say that and you don't have to say anything else after it.
Just chip paint on wall.
Okay.
Yep. You don't want to use small, big,
Don't measure it.
no descriptive adjectives. Just note what it is.
Don't say that it's yellow or orange or any of that crap. You know, like sometimes when cubs, oh my gosh, when tubs, like bathtubs, have discoloration, I put discoloration, you know, near drain of tub or something like that. But I will not say that it's a yellowy brown, whatever. I'll just say discoloration. So you don't describe.
So same thing on a wall. Like if you see like a dark spot on the wall, you would just say, would you say dark spot on the wall or just discoloration on wall? What would you say?
Or mark.
Or a mark on the wall.
Oh, mark on wall. Love it.
Terry, yes, I would disclose the geese if they fly over your house every day. I would absolutely.
If they honk when they fly over every day, that probably is a thing, huh? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't know how I would feel about the honking. I don't like the parrots, so I don't think I'd like the honking either. All right, any other questions, guys?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
No.
Well, everybody have a beautiful
Yes, Nikki,
day.
this is Philip. I came late. I was on, anyway, long story short, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
I think your mom kind of chastised me one time on a meeting, but basically because I was like disclosing stuff that should be disclosed, like granite counters in the kitchen, smoke detectors and stuff like that. So basically, in a nutshell, only disclose stuff that's like you said, chip on wall, crack in ceiling, scratch on floor, anything that's not 100% or normal. Then correct?
Yes.
Okay, so because this home I have, I'm going to do my AVID today or tomorrow. There's going to be very few things to find. So when you do that, it's like you feel like you haven't done your job if there's nothing on there. It's like you look, like you said, you look for something to innocuous.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just pull this one up. You probably missed it. If there's nothing to note, Philip,
Yeah.
nothing. And there's always the big standby that I did mention earlier. Check the sidewalk, check the
Right.
garage, check the driveway. It's
One of the things I might want to add for everybody, and I learned this a long time ago through when we had an attorney talking with the TDS and all that stuff, was when you sometimes in garages you got a lot of stuff in a garage or carpet over you can't see. unable to don't know if there what's underneath carpet, because there could be a big hole there that your client's hiding that they don't know about, that it's there. Disclose it to save our butt, just as an FYI to everybody out there, because that could come back and kick you in the back. You know, they remove it or they move the stuff and there's a big hole or crack in there. It's like, uh-oh, we didn't know.
Yeah.
In that same vein, thanks for touching on that, Nick, or sorry, Philip. If you do your walkthrough, this might be not really AVID related, but it kind of is, because if you do your walkthrough, let's say these people, I don't know, you didn't have you do it 5 days before because maybe they were still there, and then you find something. How do you address that? Let's say it's like the last day or something, because maybe that's just the way you were able to get in there. Hey, can you stop? Because I had this happen. It was actually I think it was like my second transaction where it could have been really bad. The listing agent, basically, the people were not out, so we were not able to do our walkthrough, and they had rugs and stuff. And so we were there the very last day. We were closing escrow that day, doing our walkthrough, because they finally got all their stuff out and there was a hole in the hardwood floors. Should I just been like, I mean, thankfully my buyers were like, don't worry about it, we're going to replace these awful floors, because they were like that, I don't know what they're called, the weird, like, kind of, anyway, they were like these old 70s wood floors. And so she was like, we're going to replace them anyways. But what could I have done if if it's the last moment? Could I have just been like, nope, stop everything, we need to fix this? Is that what I should have done?
Yeah, you can stop funding. Here's the thing. If you go into the home and there's something that you were unable to view through the entire transaction, that is a newly disclosed item.
Okay.
That is a new item that's coming up.
Yeah.
There's the final walkthrough where somebody's like, oh, there's all these things that I didn't note on my request for repairs. No. If you walk in and there was a rug covering a hole in the floor, you literally write on that final walkthrough, there is a hole in the floor that was not visible before or was not there before, and the seller needs to take care of it. Property needs to be in the same condition as when you made the offer. When you made the offer, there was no visible or known hole in the floor. That needs to be fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Terry's also asking a good question. What if it's found like later? Here's the deal, guys. Anytime a property is being delivered and something wasn't disclosed that was most likely known of the property as a defect, it causes the question of, should this become, usually what happens is the agents get involved and they reach out to each side and they try to work it out between buyer and seller even after the close of escrow. That's the normal thing that first takes place. But if seller tells the new buyer, hey, go take a hike, you're now a homeowner, figure it out, and the buyer really wants to pursue it, it could become a legal issue. That's the honest to God truth. There's really no recourse. There's no deposit. There's nothing held behind in many cases. So there's nothing to do other than to sue the other party if they're not cooperative, especially if it's a big major item that causes huge financial, concern. So that's really the answer in short. And it's not, I agree with Nick. I mean, with what Nikki said, at the very end of your deal, if you find something, you can note it on your final walkthrough, but it's not really your responsibility to add it to your AVID or anything like that.
Terry, I had a situation like this where during the inspection, the